My name is Frances Farrell. I am 32 years old, and 2 hours ago I signed a piece of paper that will cost my father everything he built. He does not know yet. Right now he is inside that house, straightening his tie, rehearsing a speech he wrote on a yellow legal pad. 25 family members are waiting at a long table with the good china and candles that Diane picked out. My dad has an announcement tonight, a framed certificate, a declaration. Happy tears. I already know what he is going to say. I know because I found it on his desk 4 days ago. And what he wrote, about the daughter he always deserved, is the reason I drove to a lawyer's office this afternoon and put my name on 3 documents that will change this family forever. But here is what none of them know. The speech is not the worst part. What comes after the speech, what arrives in a white envelope 9 days from now, is something my father cannot undo, and he will have 90 days to figure out how. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, the place where family secrets unfold and quiet decisions change everything. If you are new here, drop a comment and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a story. Now, let us get into it. When I was 8 years old, my father drove me to a construction site on Route 9 in his pickup truck. It was a Saturday morning, early enough that the dew was still on the grass. He lifted me onto a stack of plywood and pointed at a steel beam running across the ceiling of a half-finished house. You see that beam, Franny? That is what holds everything up. Without it, the whole thing falls. That is what you are going to be someday. I believed him. I believed everything he said back then. My father is Rick Farrell, owner of Farrell & Sons Construction. He started as a laborer at 19, took over the company from his father Harold at 31, and built it into the biggest residential contractor in Ridgewood County. My mother died when I was 7, ovarian cancer. She was 34. After she was gone, it was just me and my father and my grandfather Harold, who smelled like cedar shavings and kept butterscotch in his desk drawer. Harold was the one who held things together. He ran the books, negotiated the contracts, trained the crews. My father swung the hammer. Harold built the structure. Every Sunday after church, Harold would take me to his study. The desk was solid cedar, hand-built, with a brass lamp and a glass paperweight shaped like a bear. He would sit me on his lap and let me stamp invoices with the company seal. "Don't ever let anyone make you feel small in your own family," he told me once. I was 9. I did not understand it then. That was before Diane. My father met Diane Mitchell when I was 18, 2 weeks before I left for college. She was a receptionist at the dentist's office on Oak Street. She had a daughter named Megan from her first marriage. Megan was 8. Diane was warm, attentive. She brought my father casseroles, asked about his day, laughed at his jokes. She made him feel seen in a way he had not felt since my mother died. I understood that. I did not blame him for it. But Diane's warmth had a radius. It extended to my father, to Megan, to the neighbors she wanted to impress. It did not extend to me. Her smile changed when my father left the room. Not dramatically, not cruelly, just less. Like a lamp switched to a lower setting. "Frances, honey, Megan really needs her own space. Would you mind if we moved some of your things to the guest room?" This was 3 months after the wedding. My bedroom became Megan's craft room. My posters came down. Her butterfly stickers went up. The family photo on the mantel changed next. The one from my parents' wedding was replaced by a new one. Rick, Diane, Megan, and me at the county fair. Except I was standing on the far right, half a step behind everyone else. By Christmas that year, my face was 3 inches from the edge of the frame. By the next Christmas, there was a new frame entirely, a professional portrait. Rick, Diane, and Megan in matching blue sweaters. I was at college when they took it. Nobody told me. I found out when I came home for break and saw it hanging above the fireplace. I wanted to be a structural engineer. I had wanted it since that morning on Route 9 when my father pointed at the steel beam and told me I would be the thing that holds everything up. When I asked my father to help pay for college, he sat at the kitchen table and rubbed the back of his neck. "Engineering? Franny, that is a tough field. Expensive too. Diane thinks maybe you should consider teaching. Steady hours. Good benefits. I looked at him. Diane thinks? We both think. I applied for every scholarship I could find. I worked nights at a copy center. I graduated with a degree in structural engineering from state, $37,000 in student loans, and $0 from my father. He came to my graduation. He sat in the 5th row with Diane and Megan. Megan played a game on Diane's phone the entire ceremony. After it was over, my father hugged me and said, "Proud of you, Franny. Knew you would figure it out." He left before the reception. Diane had dinner reservations. The phone calls got shorter after that. I would call on Sunday afternoons, and he would talk for 6 or 7 minutes before Diane reminded him about something, a show they were watching, an errand they needed to run. Every semester, the phone calls got shorter. Every holiday, the excuses got longer. "Oh, Franny, we thought you were staying at school this Thanksgiving. Megan has a recital on Christmas Eve, so we are doing dinner early this year. Did I not tell you?" He always forgot to tell me, or someone made sure he forgot. My grandfather Harold died on a Tuesday in March. He was 79. Heart attack at the cedar desk in his study. They found him with his reading glasses still on and a half-finished cup of coffee next to the brass lamp. The funeral was held at First Baptist on Elm Street. 200 people came. Harold was the kind of man who remembered your kid's name and asked about your dog. The whole town showed up. Diane complained about the seating arrangement. "I just think immediate family should be in the front pew, Rick. Not cousins, not old friends. Immediate family." She meant herself and Megan. She did not mean me. Aunt Patrice, my father's older sister, moved me to the front pew herself without saying a word. After the service, Harold's attorney pulled me aside. His name was Martin Cope, a quiet man in a brown suit who had represented Harold for 30 years. "Your grandfather left something for you, Francis. 40% of Farrell and Sons Construction, held in a trust." I stared at him. "The trust vests when you turn 30. Until then, the shares are locked. Your father knows the trust exists, but not the specifics." Martin handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper in Harold's handwriting. "Your father is a good man with a weak spine. This 40% is your seat at the table. Don't give it up for anyone." I was 24. I had 6 years before any of it mattered. I folded the letter, put it in my coat pocket, and walked past Harold's study on the way out. The cedar desk was still there. The brass lamp was still on. On my 30th birthday, I drove to Martin Cope's office and signed the paperwork that made the trust official. 40% of Farrell and Sons Construction was now mine. Not on paper in a drawer. Mine in the state registry, the tax filings, the LLC operating agreement. Martin walked me through the agreement. It was 43 pages long, drafted by Harold and an attorney named Judith Greenwald in 1999. Harold had paid Judith separately. My father had signed the agreement without reading past page 4. Clause 7.3, Martin said, tapping the page. "This is the one your grandfather wanted you to know about." I read it twice. "Voluntary relinquishment by any member triggers mandatory buyback at independently appraised fair market value. Remaining members must complete buyback within 90 calendar days or forfeit operational control to a court-appointed trustee." Martin leaned back. "Your grandfather wrote that clause specifically to protect you. If you ever chose to leave the company, they would have to pay you fair value for your shares. They cannot simply absorb them." "And if they cannot pay?" "Then the LLC restructures under court supervision. Your father would lose day-to-day control." I sat with that for a long time. The office was quiet. Traffic hummed on Caldwell Street below. "I hope I never need this," I said. Martin nodded. Harold hoped the same thing. I filed the agreement in a fireproof box in my closet. 2 years passed. I designed bridges and parking garages and hospital wings. I paid off my student loans. I bought a condo 45 minutes from Ridgewood. I did not think about Clause 7.3. Not yet. I tried. I want that on the record. I tried for 2 years. When I turned 30, I emailed my father. "Dad, I would like to discuss my role in the company. Can we set up a time to talk?" He replied 4 days later. "Sure, Franny, let's talk soon." Soon never came. I called Diane and proposed a family dinner. Rick has been so stressed lately, she said. Maybe next month? Next month turned into the month after that, which turned into silence. I invited my father to lunch 3 times. He canceled the first. He forgot the second. The third time, he showed up 20 minutes late, ate half a sandwich, and left when Diane texted that Megan needed a ride. 14 minutes. That was our longest conversation in 2 years. I sent a formal letter. Not legal, just clear. I outlined my position in the company. I asked for quarterly meetings. I asked to be included in financial reviews. I sent it by email and by certified mail. My father forwarded the email to Diane. I know this because Diane called me the next day. Francis, why are you creating drama? Can't you see your father is happy? He doesn't need this stress. If you want to be part of the family, just show up and be pleasant. I am trying to show up, Diane. Nobody answers the door. She hung up. 14 emails, 3 voicemails, 2 certified letters, 0 responses, 0 meetings, 0 acknowledgement that I owned 40% of a company that paid my father's mortgage, funded Megan's car, and kept the lights on at 27 job sites across Ridgewood County. The text came on a Wednesday. From my father, which was unusual. He normally communicated through Diane. Father's Day dinner, Sunday the 15th, 6 p.m. Be there. The whole family. Dad. I read it 3 times. My father had not personally invited me to anything in over a year. I called Aunt Patrice. He is planning something, Patrice said. Diane has been organizing for weeks. New tablecloth, candles, the good silverware. She even hired a photographer. A photographer? For a Father's Day dinner? Honey, I do not know what they are planning, but it is not just dinner. I hung up, sat on my couch, looked at the fireproof box in my closet. I had a feeling, not proof, not certainty. Just a slow, heavy feeling in my chest like the moment before a beam test when you know the load is too much, but you have not heard the crack yet. I called Martin Cope. Martin, if I ever decide to exercise Clause 7.3, the voluntary relinquishment, how fast can you prepare the paperwork? There was a pause. I can have everything drafted, reviewed, and ready for signature by Thursday. Thursday of this week? Thursday of this week. I looked at the calendar on my kitchen wall. Today was Wednesday. The dinner was Sunday. Thursday was tomorrow. Draft it, I said. I am not saying I will sign. I just want it ready. Understood. I will have it on my desk by noon. I hung up, took a shower, made dinner, sat at my small table and ate pasta alone, the way I had eaten dinner alone most nights for the past 14 years. Thursday works, I thought. Thursday works. Thursday came. Martin's paperwork sat in a manila folder on his desk. I did not sign it. Not yet. Friday, I drove to my father's house. Aunt Patrice had asked for help setting up decorations, and Diane insisted that the whole family pitch in. I took that to mean she needed someone to carry folding chairs from the garage. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and Diane's perfume. Megan was in the living room, talking on the phone. She did not acknowledge me when I walked past. In the dining room, I saw the table already set for 25, name cards at every seat. I looked for mine. It was at the far end, between a cousin I had not spoken to in 3 years and an empty chair. My father's seat was at the head. Megan's card was to his right, Diane's to his left. I carried the chairs. I hung the banner. I said nothing. Then I walked past the kitchen counter and saw it. A new picture frame, gold-edged, ornate, the kind you would use for something you wanted people to notice. It was empty, but a small white card inside read, Certificate of Adoption, State of North Carolina. Next to it, I heard Megan's voice from the other room. She was laughing. I know, I am so excited, it is going to be official. On the counter behind the frame was an envelope from the county courthouse. The return address said, In the matter of adult adoption, petition filed. I set the last folding chair against the wall. I picked up my keys. I drove 45 minutes home without turning on the radio. Saturday morning, I stopped by Aunt Patrice's house. She lives in a yellow ranch on Birch Lane, 4 blocks from my father. She has lived there since before I was born. We sat at her kitchen table with coffee. She pushed a plate of cinnamon rolls toward me and said, "Francis, I need to show you something." She went to the hallway and came back with a photograph. It was a new family portrait. Rick, Diane, and Megan, taken at a studio, professional lighting, matching outfits. The same photo now hanging in my father's living room. I was not in it. When was this taken? March, I think. Diane posted it on Facebook. I looked at the photo for a long time. 3 people. A family unit. Complete. No gap. No empty space where a 4th person should have been. I asked your father about it, Patrice said. She stirred her coffee. He said you preferred not to be in photos. I never said that. I know you did not. We sat in silence. The clock above the stove ticked. Outside, a lawnmower droned. Patrice reached across the table and put her hand on mine. Honey, what are you going to do? I do not know yet. That was not entirely true. Martin's paperwork was sitting in a folder on his desk. The pen was waiting. The notary was booked. But I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to walk into that dinner and have my father look at me, really look at me, and say something that meant he still knew I existed. I am going to go to the dinner, I said, and I am going to see what happens. Patrice squeezed my hand. She did not let go for a long time. 2 weeks before Father's Day, Cousin Nathan hosted a barbecue at his place on Sycamore Court. Burgers, horseshoes, kids running through a sprinkler. Normal stuff. I arrived late, parked behind Nathan's truck and walked around the side of the house to the backyard. The gate was open. I could hear music and voices. Megan was standing near the grill with 3 of our cousins. She was holding a soda can, talking fast, the way she does when she is excited about something. I was maybe 10 feet away, close enough to hear every word. It is going to be official, Megan said. Dad is adopting me, like, legally. Diane already filed the papers. Cousin Claire said something I could not hear. Megan shrugged. I mean, Francis? She was never really part of this family anyway. She barely comes around. She doesn't even work for the business. I stopped walking. Megan looked up, saw me. She did not flinch. She did not apologize. She held my eyes for 2 full seconds and then shrugged again. I mean, it is true, though. Cousin Nathan coughed. Claire looked at the ground. Nobody spoke. I set my paper plate on the edge of the picnic table. I had not put anything on it yet. I turned and walked back to my car. Megan did not call after me. Nobody did, for about 30 seconds. Then I heard Nathan say, Megan, that was out of line. And Megan say, what? She knows it is true. I sat in my car, hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. The engine was off. She was never really part of this family anyway. I drove home. I called Martin. What time can I come in on Friday? The following Tuesday, I went to my father's office at the Farrell & Sons compound on Industrial Drive. I had quarterly paperwork to drop off, tax documents that needed his signature as majority operator. I had been doing this twice a year since Harold died. It was the only reason I ever went to the office. The front desk was empty. Joanne, the receptionist, was on lunch. I walked down the hall to my father's office. The door was open. On his desk, next to a coffee mug and a stack of invoices, sat the framed certificate. Gold frame. Elegant calligraphy on cream paper. Certificate of Adoption, State of North Carolina. Megan's full name. My father's full name. A line for the judge. A line for my father's signature. Megan had already signed. Next to the certificate was a yellow legal pad. My father's handwriting. A draft of a speech. I should not have read it, but I did. Family means everything to me, and today, on this Father's Day, I want to tell all of you that I am finally making it official. I am adopting Megan Elizabeth Mitchell as my daughter. She has brought light into my life, purpose into my home, and joy into every single day. I finally have the daughter I always deserved. I read it twice. I counted the words. 47 words in the speech. Megan's name appeared twice. Mine appeared 0 times. I set the quarterly paperwork on the counter by the door. I did not leave a note. I walked out of the building, past the break room, past the trucks in the gravel lot with Farrell and Sons stenciled on the doors. I sat in my car for 11 minutes before I could start the engine. Wednesday evening. I was sitting on my couch with a bowl of soup I had barely touched. The television was on but muted. Some home renovation show, a couple arguing about tile. I picked up my phone and called Martin. "The paperwork we discussed," I said. "Is it ready?" "Ready to sign whenever you are. I can have the notary in the office any day this week." I looked at the television. The couple had stopped arguing. They were hugging. The tile they picked was beige. "Martin, if I sign on Friday, the dinner is Sunday. Is there a way to hold the filing? In case I change my mind?" "I can hold the executed documents for 48 hours before submitting them to the state. If you want to cancel within that window, you call me and I shred them. No filing, no record, no consequence. And if I do not call? I file Monday morning at 9. The 90-day clock starts. Your father receives formal notice 7 to 10 business days after that." I stared at my soup. It had gone cold. There was a film on the surface. "Friday at 2, I said. "I will be here." I hung up, set the phone on the cushion next to me, pressed my palms against my eyes. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to walk into that dinner on Sunday and have my father look at me, really look at me, the way he did when I was 8 years old on that construction site, and say one thing that told me I still mattered to him. That was all. One sentence, one look, one moment of recognition. If he gave me that, I would call Martin, and it would all go away. Friday afternoon, 2 days before the dinner. Patrice had asked me to come by the house one more time. There were centerpieces to arrange, chairs to recount, a dessert table to set up in the living room. I did not want to go. But Patrice asked, and Patrice was the one person in that house who still looked at me like I was a whole person. Diane was in the backyard, directing 2 of Megan's friends who were hanging string lights. My father was at the office. Megan was upstairs getting ready for something. I was alone in the kitchen, arranging napkins into fans the way Diane had demonstrated earlier. Her phone was on the counter, face up, plugged into a charger. It buzzed. The screen lit up. I was not trying to look, but I saw the notification, a group chat. The name at the top was Farrell Family, 3 participants, Rick, Diane, Megan. I was not in the group. The message on screen was from Diane, sent 40 minutes earlier. After Sunday, we reclassify her shares as dormant, talk to the accountant Monday. Below it, my father's reply. She won't even notice. She never comes to meetings. And below that, Megan. Can we change the locks on the office too, LOL? I stood very still. The kitchen faucet dripped. Outside, one of Megan's friends laughed at something. I picked up Diane's phone. I took 3 screenshots. I sent them to my own number. I deleted the sent messages from Diane's text log. I placed the phone exactly where it had been, screen down, plugged in. I walked to the hallway, stopped in front of Harold's study. The cedar desk was still there. Same brass lamp, same glass paperweight. My father used the room now but had not changed a thing. I put my hand on the desk. The wood was warm from the afternoon sun through the window. 6 years of trust, 14 years of patience. And they were planning to erase me from the ledger the same week they erased me from the family. I took my hand off the desk. I drove to Martin's office. I signed the papers. If you have ever sat at a family table and realized that nobody was going to fight for your seat, that the empty chair was already filled before you even left, then you know exactly what this moment feels like. Drop a comment. Tell me your story. And if this one is hitting close, stay with me, because what happens on Sunday is something none of them are ready for. The notary was a woman named Patricia, short gray hair, reading glasses on a chain. She did not make small talk. I sat in Martin's office at 2:14 on a Friday afternoon and signed my name on 3 documents. The relinquishment of my 40% stake in Farrell and Sons Construction, LLC, the request for independent appraisal, the formal notification to remaining members. Martin watched me sign each one. He did not rush me. He did not ask if I was sure. When I finished, he put the documents in a blue folder and set them in his desk drawer. "Once I file these on Monday, the 90-day clock starts," he said. "The independent appraiser will assess the company's fair market value. Based on the most recent revenue figures, your 40% is worth approximately $320,000. And if they cannot pay within 90 days, they forfeit operational control. The LLC restructures under court supervision." I nodded. $320,000. That was what 14 years of silence was worth when someone finally bothered to read the operating agreement. "You still have the 48-hour window?" Martin said. "Call me any time before Sunday at 2:14, and I shred everything." I drove home, walked past my closet where the fireproof box held Harold's original agreement. I opened the folder he had left me. Inside, next to the trust documents, was the yellowed copy of the agreement with Harold's handwriting in the margin. "The table always has a seat for you, sweetheart." I closed the folder. Tomorrow was Father's Day, Sunday morning. I woke up at 6:37. The light through my bedroom window was pale blue, the kind of light that makes everything look quieter than it is. I lay there for a while, thought about calling Martin, thought about shredding the whole thing, putting on jeans, driving to my father's house with a bottle of wine and a card that said, "Happy Father's Day, Dad," in my handwriting. I could still do that. The window was open. The pen had not yet become permanent. I got up, showered, stood in front of my closet for 11 minutes. I chose a blue dress, navy, simple, with a belt. Harold's favorite color was navy blue. He wore a navy tie to church every Sunday. I put on the earrings my mother used to wear. Small gold hoops with a tiny sapphire. They had been in a velvet box on her dresser when she died. Aunt Patrice saved them for me. I called Patrice. "I will be there." "You do not have to go, honey." "I know." I looked at my phone. Martin's number was in my recent calls. 48-hour window. I could still stop it. One phone call and it would all disappear. I put the phone in my purse. I was not going to make a scene. I was not going to cry. I was not going to stand up and deliver a speech about betrayal or injustice, or 14 years of being erased one photo at a time. I was going to sit down, eat dinner, and watch my father make his choice in front of 25 people who shared his last name. And then I was going to go home. Whatever happened after that was arithmetic. I pulled into the driveway at 5:52. Cars were already parked along both sides of Maple Lane. Uncle Gene's Buick, Cousin Nathan's truck, Aunt Patrice's gray sedan, a white SUV I did not recognize, Diane's side of the family. The house was lit up. Through the front window, I could see people moving, plates being passed, Diane adjusting something on the table. The banner over the fireplace said, "Happy Father's Day" in gold letters. Balloons bobbed from the porch railing. I sat in my car for 2 minutes, checked my face in the mirror, smoothed the front of my dress, touched my mother's earrings. Then I got out and walked to the door. Inside, it was warm and loud. 25 people in a house meant for 12. Cousins I saw once a year. Aunts who pinched my cheeks and said I looked thin. Diane's mother, who always called me Rick's other one. Diane greeted me at the kitchen doorway. "Oh, Frances, you came. How nice." She air-kissed near my cheek. Her perfume was strong. Her smile was precise. I looked for my father. He was in the living room, standing near the fireplace with Megan, showing her something on his phone. He saw me, waved. "Hey, Franny." Then he turned back to Megan. I found my seat at the table. End of the row, between Cousin Derek, who I had not spoken to since Harold's funeral, and an empty chair. No one had saved me a spot near the head. Aunt Patrice appeared beside me. She sat down, squeezed my hand under the table, and said nothing. At 7:15, my father tapped his wine glass with a fork. The room went quiet. Diane stood first. She walked to the light switch and dimmed the overheads. The candles on the table caught, throwing soft shadows on the walls. It looked choreographed, because it was. Everyone, Rick has something very special he would like to share tonight. Her voice carried that practiced warmth, the kind that sounds like love if you are not listening closely. She turned to Megan and whispered, "Ready, sweetheart?" Megan nodded. She was smiling. Her eyes were bright. I looked past my father and saw it. Behind his chair, propped on a small wooden easel, was the gold-framed certificate, the same one I had seen on his desk 4 days earlier. Certificate of Adoption, State of North Carolina. The calligraphy caught the candlelight. Next to the easel stood a woman I did not recognize, Diane's friend, the photographer. She had a camera with a long lens and she was already lifting it into position. A planned moment. A staged reveal. Not a dinner. A production. Diane caught me looking at the easel. Our eyes met across the table. She smiled. It was not her polite smile, or her nervous smile, or her public smile. It was a different smile. The smile of someone who has already won and wants you to know it. Patrice leaned toward me. "What is happening, Francis?" I picked up my water glass, took a sip, set it down. "You will see." My father stood at the head of the table. He held his wine glass in one hand and straightened his collar with the other. He cleared his throat. 25 people turned to face him. I folded my hands in my lap. My heart was beating fast. My hands were perfectly still. My father began the way he begins everything, with confidence he has not earned. "Family," he said, lifting his glass. "Family means everything to me." He paused for effect. Diane nodded encouragingly. Megan clasped her hands together. "When I lost my first wife, God rest her soul, I thought I would never find happiness again. Then Diane came into my life, and everything changed." He looked at Diane. She pressed a hand to her chest. "And Megan, my little Megan. From the moment you walked into this house, you brought light. You brought purpose. You brought joy into every single day." Megan wiped her eyes. Several aunts reached for napkins. He talked for 4 minutes. I counted. He talked about Diane's cooking. He talked about Megan's laugh. He talked about what it means to build a family from the ground up. He said Megan's name 11 times. He did not say mine once. Not a passing mention. Not a, "both my daughters," or "my kids," or even "all of you." He spoke as though I did not exist in the room or in his life, as though the 8-year-old girl on the plywood stack had been a draft he later deleted. I watched him. I watched his face, his gestures, the way he leaned toward Megan like a plant leaning toward light. I watched the room. Some people were smiling, some were crying. 2 of my cousins glanced at me with expressions that fell somewhere between pity and discomfort. I did not move. I did not react. I kept my hands folded in my lap and I watched. Aunt Patrice was rigid beside me. I could feel the tension in her arm. My father set down his wine glass, reached behind his chair. He lifted the frame certificate from the easel and held it in front of him with both hands. The gold frame glinted in the candlelight. The photographer raised her camera. "Today," my father said, "I want to make something official." He turned to Megan. "Megan Elizabeth Mitchell, I am legally adopting you as my daughter." The room erupted. Diane burst into tears. Megan threw her arms around my father. Cousins gasped, then clapped. Diane's mother shouted, "Praise the Lord!" The photographer fired off a dozen shots. Flash, flash, flash. My father held Megan at arm's length. He looked at the room. His chin was trembling and his eyes were wet. I finally have the daughter I always deserved. Applause, hugs, glasses raised. Diane dabbed her eyes with a cloth napkin and mouthed, "I love you," to Rick across the table. Megan was laughing and crying at the same time. 2 of Diane's sisters stood up to embrace her. I sat at the end of the table. Nobody looked at me, not because they were cruel, but because, in that moment, I did not factor into the story my father was telling. I was not a character. I was not even a footnote. I was the empty chair between Cousin Derek and the wall. Aunt Patrice grabbed my forearm. Her grip was tight. "Francis." "It is fine, Aunt Patrice." It was not fine. Nothing about this was fine. But the word left my mouth the way structural calculations leave my drafting table. Measured, precise, stripped of everything that does not serve the load. Under the table, I pressed my thumbs into my palms. The room was loud. The candles were bright. The 48-hour window was closing. I did not call Martin. For the next 45 minutes, the room orbited around my father and Megan like planets around a sun. People lined up to congratulate them. Diane stood beside Rick, accepting praise as though she had brokered a peace treaty. "What a beautiful gesture, Rick. Megan is so lucky to have you. This is what family is all about." Cousin Claire came to my end of the table. She sat in the empty chair next to me and leaned in. "Are you okay?" "I appreciate you asking," I said. She looked like she wanted to say more. She did not. Diane's brother-in-law, a man named Greg who I had met exactly twice, walked past and said, to no one in particular, "Rick's so lucky. Megan is such a perfect daughter." I ate my food. Roast chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes from a box. I ate methodically, because eating gave my hands something to do. I did not leave early. I did not push back my chair. I did not walk to the head of the table and say the 17 things forming in a line behind my teeth. Diane approached me during dessert. She pulled a chair close and sat with her knees pointed toward me. She smelled like vanilla and victory. "Francis, I hope you understand this is not about you." I looked at her. "I understand completely, Diane." "Good. Because we are all family here." She patted my arm, stood up, walked back to Rick. "Not about me." After 14 years of being moved to the edge of every frame, excluded from every plan, forgotten on every holiday, and erased from the business my grandfather built, it was not about me. She was right about that, actually. It was never about me. That was the whole problem. During dessert, I excused myself. Nobody noticed. The room was still buzzing with adoption glow. Diane was passing around a tray of Megan's favorite lemon squares and telling people the recipe had been in her family for generations. It had not. It was from a box. I walked down the hall to Harold's study. The door was half open. The room was dark except for the glow from the porch light through the window. The cedar desk was right where it had always been. Same brass lamp. Same glass paperweight shaped like a bear. My father used this room now. There were invoices stacked on one corner and a laptop charger snaked across the surface. But the desk itself was Harold's. He built it by hand in 1987, the year my father was born. I opened the top right drawer. Inside, beneath a stack of old bank statements and a box of paper clips, was a manila folder. I pulled it out. Inside was Harold's original copy of the Farrell & Sons operating agreement. 43 pages. Yellow with age. Harold's handwriting in the margins. I turned to page 27. Clause 7.3. Harold had underlined it in blue ink. In the margin, he wrote, "RF signed without reading. Keep this copy safe. RF, Rick Farrell." My father. I read the clause one more time. My finger followed the words. Voluntary relinquishment by any member triggers mandatory buyback. In the dining room, Diane laughed. My father said something I could not hear. The photographer's camera clicked. "Grandfather," I whispered to the empty room. I tried. I really tried. I took a photo of the clause with my phone, closed the folder, placed it back in the drawer, closed the drawer gently. Then I went back to the table and finished my lemon square. I helped clear the dishes. I always helped clear the dishes. It was what my mother taught me. You clean up after a meal, even if nobody notices. I stacked plates by the sink, wiped down the counter, wrapped the leftover chicken in foil. Diane did not thank me. She was in the living room, helping Rick hang the framed adoption certificate on the mantel, in the exact spot where my college graduation photo used to hang. I watched from the kitchen doorway. Diane held a nail. Rick tapped it in with a small hammer. They stepped back, admired it. Megan took a photo with her phone. The certificate looked like it had always been there, as though the wall had been waiting for it. I dried my hands on a dish towel and found Aunt Patrice in the hallway. "I am leaving," I said. She pulled me into a hug. Tight. The kind where you feel the other person's heartbeat. "What are you going to do?" she asked. What I should have done 2 years ago. She did not ask what that meant. I think she already knew. I walked to the living room. My father was sitting in his recliner, Megan beside him on the arm, scrolling through photos of the evening on her phone. "Happy Father's Day, Dad." He looked up. "Thanks, Franny. Drive safe." He did not stand up. He did not walk me to the door. He turned back to Megan's phone and pointed at a picture. "Send that one to Uncle Gene." I walked out. The night air was cool. Crickets. The smell of cut grass. I got in my car and sat for a moment. The 48-hour window was still open, but I already knew I would not be calling. Monday morning, 9:03. I was sitting at my desk in my office on the 4th floor of a building where I design things that hold weight. I picked up the phone and called Martin. "File it." "Are you sure?" "The 48-hour window does not expire until 2:14 this afternoon. You still have—" "Martin, file it." A pause. "Understood. Filing now." I hung up, opened my laptop, pulled up the blueprints for a hospital wing in Greensboro, calculated a load-bearing wall for the pediatric unit, checked the steel reinforcement specs for the 3rd-floor corridor. Business as usual. The work did not care about my father's speech. The beams did not care about adoption certificates or lemon squares or framed photos on mantles. The numbers were clean. The numbers were honest. The numbers held. At noon, a text from Diane. "Hi, Francis. Megan is interested in taking on more responsibility at the company. Your father thinks she could use your office since you rarely come in. Can you clear out your things by Friday? Thanks." I read it once. I read it twice. My office. The small room next to my father's, where Harold used to keep the project files. Where I used to stamp invoices on Sunday mornings. They wanted to give it to Megan. The week after the adoption. The same month they planned to reclassify my shares as dormant. I did not reply. The notice would arrive at my father's business address in 7 to 10 business days. It would come in a white envelope with Martin Cope's return address. It would be addressed to Richard A. Farrell, Managing Member, Farrell and Sons, Construction LLC. My father opens his own mail, always has. 7 to 10 days, 9 days later. I was at my desk reviewing connection details for a parking structure when my phone rang. The caller ID said, "Dad." My father had not called me directly in 7 months. "Francis." His voice was shaking. Not with anger, with something rawer than that. Disbelief. "What is this? What did you do?" "I exercised my rights under the operating agreement." "You? What are you talking about? This letter says you are relinquishing your shares. It says we owe you—" "Francis? $320,000? Are you out of your mind?" "I am exercising Clause 7.3, voluntary relinquishment with mandatory buyback at appraised fair market value. This is my business. Dad built this for me. Grandfather built it for the family. You decided who the family was." Silence. I heard him breathing. I heard Diane's voice in the background, distant, sharp. "What is she saying? What does it say?" "We need to talk about this," my father said. "Come to the house. Sit down with me and Diane. We will sort it out as a family. My attorney will be in touch. This is a legal matter now. Francis, do not do this. Think about what you are doing to this family." "I have. For 14 years. I hung up, set the phone on my desk, looked at the parking structure blueprints. The connection details were fine. The load paths were sound. Everything I built was designed to hold $320,000. That is what 14 years of silence is worth when it is written into an operating agreement that nobody bothered to read. If you have ever been the one doing the math while everyone else was doing the celebrating, stay with me, because this dinner is not over. Not by a long shot. My father called an emergency family meeting for the following Saturday. Same house, same dining room, same table where 9 days earlier he had stood up and told 25 people that Megan was the daughter he always deserved. This time there were 7 people. My father, Diane, Megan, Aunt Patrice, Uncle Jean, my attorney Carla Voss, and me. I arrived at 2 p.m. Carla was already there, sitting in her car. She wore a gray suit. She carried one folder. She did not smile, because this was not a smiling occasion. We walked in together. The dining room was clean. The banner was gone. The balloons were gone. The adoption certificate was still on the mantel. My father was standing at the head of the table. His face was red. Diane sat to his left, gripping a coffee mug. Megan sat across from her, eyes puffy. "Tell me this is a bluff," my father said. "Tell me you are not actually doing this." "This is not a bluff, Dad." Diane leaned forward. "How could you do this to your father, after everything he has given you?" I looked at her. I let the question hang for 3 full seconds. "What exactly has he given me, Diane?" Diane opened her mouth, closed it. My father slammed his palm on the table. The coffee mugs rattled. "I built this business, with my hands. I poured concrete and hung drywall and worked 70-hour weeks for 30 years. Grandfather built this business," I said. My voice was level. "And he left 40% of it to me, which I have now voluntarily relinquished. Per the operating agreement, you have 90 days to buy me out at appraised fair market value. That is not a negotiation. That is the contract you signed." Diane turned to my father. "Do something, Rick. She cannot just walk in here and—" "Mr. Farrell." Carla spoke for the first time. She opened her folder. Clause 7.3 of the Farrell & Sons Construction LLC Operating Agreement, drafted 1999 by attorney Judith Greenwald on behalf of Harold Farrell. She read it aloud, every word. The room was silent. Diane leaned back. "That clause is ridiculous. It cannot be enforceable." "It has been part of the operating agreement for 27 years, Carla said. "Signed by all current members, including Mr. Farrell. It has never been amended, challenged, or superseded." Diane pivoted. I watched the shift happen in real time, the way her posture softened, the way her voice dropped half an octave. "Francis, sweetie, we are family. Surely we can work this out without lawyers and folders and— this is not how families solve problems." "You had 14 years to solve this without lawyers, Diane." Diane's composure cracked. Not the way I expected. Not rage, not calculation. Something else. Her voice broke. "I just wanted my daughter to have a family. That is all I ever wanted. I just wanted us to be a real family." I looked at her, and I saw it. For 1 second. Not the strategist. Not the woman who cropped me out of photos and redirected phone calls and whispered narratives into my father's ear for 14 years. I saw a woman who had been left once before, by Megan's biological father, and had spent every day since making sure it would never happen again. I felt something flicker. Empathy. Recognition. The understanding that fear makes people build walls that crush the people on the other side. And then I looked at the mantel. At the adoption certificate. In the spot where my graduation photo used to be. The flicker went out. My father looked at me. His hands were flat on the table. His jaw was tight. "This is really what you want, Francis? To destroy what I built? You destroyed what grandfather built when you decided to phase me out." I saw the group chat, Dad. The room went still. Diane turned white. Megan stopped crying. "I saw every message," I said. My voice was calm, even, like reading dimensions off a blueprint. "Reclassify her shares as dormant, talk to the accountant Monday, change the locks on the office." My father looked at Diane. Diane would not meet his eyes. "That was just— we were just talking," my father said. "We did not mean— you said Megan's name 11 times in your speech, mine, 0. You invited 25 people to watch you announce that Megan was your real daughter. You hung the adoption certificate on the mantel in the exact spot where my graduation photo used to be. Francis, you said you finally had the daughter you always deserved." He flinched. I watched the words hit him the way a stress fracture propagates through concrete. Slow, invisible, and then, all at once. I said I finally had— He could not finish the sentence. He covered his mouth with his hand. Megan was crying again. This is not fair. I looked at her. You told our cousins I was never really part of this family, at Nathan's barbecue. You looked me in the eye and said it was true. Megan stared at me. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I am choosing to agree with you, Megan. I am choosing to no longer be part of this family, and the operating agreement has a price for that. Aunt Patrice stood up. She had been sitting at the end of the table, silent through the entire exchange. Her hands were in her lap. Her lips were pressed thin. She looked like a woman who had been holding something in her chest for a very long time and had just decided to let it out. Rick. My father looked up. I told you this would happen. Her voice was quiet but absolutely steady. 3 years ago, in this kitchen, I told you that you were losing Francis. You said I was overreacting. My father shook his head. Patrice, this is not... Harold would be ashamed. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Not of Francis. Of you. My father put his face in his hands. Patrice turned to Diane. And you. You knew exactly what you were doing. Every removed photo. Every forgotten invitation. Every redirected phone call. Every holiday Francis was not told about until it was too late. Diane straightened. You have no right to speak to me that way in my own house. I have every right. I am Harold Farrell's daughter, and I watched my brother erase his own child for 14 years. I said nothing for too long. I will not say nothing anymore. The room was silent. Megan was staring at the table. Uncle Gene, who had not spoken the entire meeting, leaned forward. Rick, just pay her what she is owed, and apologize. My father lifted his face from his hands. His eyes were red. His voice was raw. $320,000. Where am I supposed to find $320,000 in 90 days? Nobody answered. The adoption certificate watched from the mantel. The candles had been cleared. The photographer was gone. I stood up. I picked up my purse from the back of my chair. I looked at my father. Dad, I gave you 14 years of chances. I gave you emails and phone calls and certified letters. I gave you the dinner. I sat at that table last Sunday and watched you choose, and I did not say a word. He stared at me. His mouth was open. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. Smaller than the man who pointed at a steel beam and told me I would be the thing that holds everything up. This is not revenge, I said. This is arithmetic. 40% of an $800,000 company is $320,000. That is not a punishment. That is a fact. I turned toward the door. If you walk out that door, Diane said, you will never be welcome in this house again. I stopped. I looked back. Not at Diane. At my father. I wanted to see if he would say anything. Correct her. Object. Even hesitate. He did not. I turned to Diane. I am not asking. I am informing. I walked to the front door. Opened it. The sunlight was bright and sharp after the dim dining room. I stepped onto the porch. Carla followed me. We walked to her car in silence. She unlocked the doors. We got in. Are you okay? She asked. I looked at the house. The porch where I used to sit with Harold on summer evenings. The driveway where I learned to ride a bike. The window of the room that used to be mine. No, I said. But I will be. She started the car. We pulled away from the house on Maple Lane. I did not look back. 3 weeks passed. My father hired an attorney named Gerald Boyd, a man who wore suspenders and charged $400 an hour. Gerald reviewed the operating agreement, called Martin, and requested a meeting. The meeting lasted 40 minutes. Gerald confirmed that Clause 7.3 was ironclad. Harold's attorney Judith Greenwald had drafted it to survive exactly this scenario. A family member forced out by the remaining operator. There was no loophole, no technicality, no angle of attack. My father took out a loan against the business. $110,000 at 8.5% interest, secured by the equipment yard and 2 company trucks. The bank required a personal guarantee. Diane co-signed. Diane was furious. Not at the bank. At me. And, for the first time that I know of, at Rick. You should have read the damn agreement, she told him. Cousin Claire overheard it at the grocery store. The walls in Ridgewood are thin. Megan's proposed role at the company was quietly shelved. There was no budget for a new position when the business was making installment payments on a $320,000 buyout. 3 weeks after the family meeting, I received a check in the mail. $100,000. First installment of 3. I deposited it at the branch on Caldwell Street. The teller asked if I wanted to open a money market account. I said yes. The following Saturday, Aunt Patrice drove 45 minutes to my condo. She brought a casserole. Harold's recipe, the one with the cornbread crust that he made every Thanksgiving. We ate together at my small kitchen table, the one I bought at a yard sale the year I moved in. Harold would be proud of you, Patrice said. I do not know about that. I do. We washed the dishes together. Patrice dried. I washed. We did not talk about Rick or Diane or Megan or the certificate still hanging on the mantel at the house on Maple Lane. Cousin Nathan called me that week. Your dad has been telling everyone you robbed him. He is welcome to tell people whatever he needs to. Nathan paused. For what it is worth, most of us know the truth. Thank you, Nathan. I hung up, went back to my blueprints. The hospital wing in Greensboro was ahead of schedule. I did not win. There is no winning when your father looks at you and chooses someone else. There is no winning when the man who taught you what a beam does is the same man who removes you from the frame. But I learned something Harold tried to tell me a long time ago, sitting at that cedar desk with sawdust on his sleeves. Your seat at the table is not a gift anyone can take from you. It is something you build with your own hands. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stand up from a table where your plate was never set. That is my story. 14 years of patience. One operating agreement nobody read. And a Father's Day dinner that changed everything. If this story reminded you to know your worth, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, drop a comment, and I will see you in the next one.